So here in favorite component, we want to mark this field isFavorite as an input property, so we can use it in property binding expressions, like here in app.component.html. Now there are two ways to mark this field as an input property. Here's the first approach. We need to import a decorator function here on the top from Angular/core library. This is called input. And then we can use this to annotate this field. So @input, and we call it like a function, exactly like how we use this component decorator here. Now input is another decorator in Angular for marking fields and properties as input properties. Now this field is exposed to the outside, and in our templates, we can bind it to a property somewhere else. So let's go back in the browser. You can see our star icon is initially full because in app component, I set the isFavorite property of the post object to true. So here in the template, look, we're binding isFavorite to post.isFavorite. So our property binding works perfectly. Now if I click this, it goes empty. Beautiful. Now let me show you the second approach to mark this field as an input property. So back in the favorite component, we don't need this input decorator, so we can delete it from the top. Instead, we can declare this field as an input property in the component metadata. So here in our component decorator, we can add another property, inputs. We set this to an array of strings. In this array, we list all the fields and properties that should be input properties. So in this case, isFavorite. Now you may think this approach is better because there's one less step. We don't have to import the input decorator and our code is a little bit cleaner. But actually there is a problem with this approach and I'm going to show you that in a second. Now before going any further, let's make sure the application works up to this point. So save, back in the browser. So our star icon is full, click, it's empty, beautiful. Now what is the problem with this approach? The problem is the use of this magic string here. So this code works as long as we have a field or a property in our class called isFavorite. If tomorrow I decide to rename this field for refactoring reasons, let's say I want to change this to isSelected. So I use F2 to rename this field, and you can see all the occurrences of this field are also updated. However, this magic string here is not updated. So our input property is broken. Let me show you. Save, back in the browser. So look, the star is full and you may think this is actually working. But no, look what happens when I click on this icon. It doesn't go empty. What's going on? Well, when you declare a field as an input property using the component metadata, this actually creates a field under the hood like this. isFavorite boolean. And of course, in our template, we can bind this to another property. Like here, in app component, we're binding this to another property, right? So in our component, we'll end up with two fields. This isFavorite is a completely separate field, and it's got nothing to do with isSelected. Note that here in onClick method, we have used isSelected field, not isFavorite. That's why when we click this icon, nothing happens. So I personally think this is really redundant. I don't like that Angular team have multiple ways to do things in Angular. It just makes the framework harder to learn and confuses new learners. Plus, you can see the issue with this magic string here. So I hope in the future versions of Angular, they just drop this and make component metadata simpler. So back to the first approach, I'm going to import the input decorator and let's delete this. Apply @input here. So this is how we define input properties.